Hello, everyone. Welcome to the NFL Week 5 edition of the Player Prop Countdown, where I rank my top 10 favorite player props for this week's NFL action. If you're looking for the road to 272, that gets released on Tuesday morning. So if you're on the Bacon Bets YouTube channel, which I encourage you to subscribe to, just check out the latest video. If you're listening to the audio version of this, it is the most recent episode to this one. But this is Thursday morning, would be the earliest that you're listening to this. And I got 10 player props to get through, including actually 2 for Thursday Night Football with my beloved Atlanta Falcons taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Good news was last week, we had a pretty good week. I went 5-5 again, which seems to be the theme with my player props. I've gone 5-5, 5-5, 5-5, and 5-4-1 one week. But we did hit my dark horse touchdown bet last week, which is Pat Freiermuth at 4-1, which means we did walk away from week 4 with my player props for 5-5 plus 2.66 units. That brings my season-to-date record with the player prop countdown to 20 wins, 19 losses, 1 push for plus 1.83 units. And I guess I should say the one wasn't exactly a push. It ended up being void because I think that was the game Evan Ingram. Yeah, I took the over in Evan Ingram receiving yards, and then he hurt his hamstring in the warm-up for the game. So that got voided. I guess it's 20 wins, 19 losses, and a voided bet. But we march on to week 5, where I do once again have 10 player props. 2 fewer games to choose from this week with 4 teams on bye, so we've got just 14 games to choose from. And I will let you know, I record this Wednesday nights. For some reason, there's a handful of games that still don't have player props posted at any sports books, including Sunday Night Football. Steelers Cowboys is one of them, and I think a couple of late afternoon games as well. Not sure why sports books are a little bit delayed on getting out prop bets for those games, so it narrowed it down. If I want to, release these episodes Thursday morning, I got to make my picks and record Wednesday night. So that narrowed it down to about 10 or 11 games that I could choose from. So a couple of repeat games. But still, I like these 10 bets quite a bit. So we don't waste time on the player prop countdown. We jump right into it, starting with my number 10 ranked player prop for week 5 action, Trevor Lawrence. And I will say the theme of the player prop countdown is going to follow the theme of the road to 272 this week, which is sell high, buy low. And just like I'm buying low on the Jaguars as a team, I'm buying low a little bit on Trevor Lawrence, because Trevor Lawrence might be a penny stock right now with how much people are kind of out on him and starting to call him a bit of a bust. But his passing yards total is 234.5. I took the over on that at minus 111. And it really comes down to the Colts secondary, which has not been good this season. 25th in opponent yards per pass attempt. They're giving up 7.1 yards per throw. They're also 21st in opponent drop back success rate, 24th in opponent EPA per drop back. And at the very least, we do know the Jaguars are going to throw the ball a ton. They had one of the highest pass play rates last year. So far this year, they're 6th in the NFL in pass play percentage, throwing the ball on 61.9% of snaps. So Trevor Lawrence is going to throw the ball a ton. It's just whether or not he's going to be able to get the completions and rack up the yards. I think the Jaguars are in a little bit of a screw it, let's just go for it kind of mode. I think they can attack this Colts secondary a little bit. It is the weakness of this Colts defense. And I think Trevor Lawrence is going to go over his number. I don't think he has so far this season. Let me just quickly look. But I am buying low on this guy to have kind of a breakout game for the first time this season. No, the most he's had is 220 against Cleveland in week 2. He's thrown the ball at least 30 times in 3 games, though. Just not really a lot of downfield throws. Let's get some downfield throws going. Let's get you to at least 235 yards on Sunday. Moving on. Hey, that was a little buy high or buy low option. This time we're going a little sell high option. We're gonna go Jaden Daniels. I'm selling high on the Commanders. I'm selling high on Jaden Daniels, and I want to make it clear. I'm not saying I think Jaden Daniels is bad. I'm not saying I think the Washington Commanders offense is bad, but it's all a market, right? It's all based on where the odds makers are setting the odds and the player prop totals for these kinds of players. And I think now Jaden Daniels is getting a little bit overvalued. His passing yards total is at 212.5 yards. I'm taking the under at minus 115. And for a lot of the same reasons why I'm taking the Browns to cover, I'm taking the under on this bet. This is by far the best defense that Jaden Daniels and the Washington offense will have faced this season. The Browns are, at least so far, not as good as the Browns defense that we come to get used to last year and even the year before. Not as dominant, but still. The 4 defenses the Commanders have faced so far have been the Bengals, the Cardinals, the Buccaneers, and the Giants. Cardinals and Bengals might be 2 of the 3 worst defenses in the NFL. Giants aren't much better, and the Buccaneers defense is average at best. So the Browns defense is now by far the best defense that he will have faced. They rank 8th right now in the NFL in opponent yards per pass attempt, giving up 5.8 yards per throw. It's time for a little bit of a wake-up call for Jaden Daniels, I think. So I'm going to take the under on his passing yards total of 212.5. I got 2 prop bets for Thursday Night Football. I mentioned it earlier, so this is why you got to listen to the Player Prop Countdown Thursday mornings, or at least Thursday before the game begins. Last week for Thursday Night Football, I gave out Zeke under his rushing yards total. That hit pretty easily. I say pretty easily at the very end of the game when the Cowboys were running out the clock. They took Zeke out on the field. And he ran, I think, 3 or 4 times in a row. And then he was ended up being 6 or 7 yards away from going on the over just from them running the clock out with Zeke in the backfield. But then they brought out Rico Dowdle to kind of finish the game off. So that still ended up hitting by, I think, 10 yards, 8 yards, because I think his last carry was a loss. Regardless, what I'm trying to say is you're going to want to tail these Thursday night picks as well. And I'm going to back my guy, Bijan Robinson, who might also be in a sneaky little bit of a buy low spot. I'm going to take Bijan Robinson over 91.5 rushing plus receiving yards. I'm seeing a lot of people buying Tyler Algier stock after their game last week, where the Falcons did lean a little bit more on Algier in the run game than Bijan Robinson. But I'm not going to take that one game sample size and then kind of, change my opinion. I don't think the Falcons, who all offseason are saying Bijan Robinson was going to be a focal point of their offense, is all of a sudden now, because Tyler Algier ran the ball more effectively in one game, all of a sudden going to now bench Bijan, which I've seen articles that the Falcons should bench Bijan Robinson, which is insane. Bench Bijan and now make Tyler Algier the starting running back. That's just not going to happen. They rode the hot hand a little bit last week. That doesn't mean they're going to change their game plan and give Algier the ball a lot more this week. Also, the Falcons are going up against the Tampa Bay defense, which cannot stop the run. One of the worst run defenses in the NFL, 29th in opponent yards per carry, giving up 5 yards per rush. 32nd, so dead last in opponent rush EPA, and 25th in opponent rush success rate. So I think the Falcons are going to have a ton of success on the ground this week, especially with Caleb McGarry, one of the better run blockers, back healthy on the offensive line. But we're not just going to go rush yards, because we are going to toss in, because they are going to try to get the ball. Even if they do give Algier maybe the ball a little bit more than they did in the first couple of weeks, they are going to do their best to get the ball in Bijan's hand as many different ways as possible. And one of those ways that they do that is through the passing game as well. So we're gonna combine the rush yards and receiving yards. So that's over 91.5 rushing plus receiving yards for Bijan Robinson on Thursday Night Football against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Also going to sell high in another guy here at quarterback. Bit of a sell high spot. We're not getting crazy, though. But Andy Dalton, the Carolina Panthers. Week 1, we've seen this, time and time again with backup quarterbacks. They come in, have a big, first performance, and then they regress a little bit the second week. And then the third week, we're like, maybe they aren't the savior of this franchise. And I think we might see that with Andy Dalton, because he is another case of a guy who got to face the Raiders in his first start, a pretty weak pass defense. The Bengals in his second start, a very weak pass defense. And now Andy Dalton has to take on the Bears, who the biggest strength of the Chicago Bears is their secondary. The Bears rank 2nd in opponent dropback EPA, 7th in opponent dropback success rate, and they allow only 174.5 passing yards per game, and they're also 9th in opponent yards per pass attempt, giving up 6 yards per throw. So, I could keep listing stats, but this is a very good secondary, a very good pass defense. With Andy Dalton's pass yards total at 216.5, I think the Panthers would be a lot smarter to rely on the run game in this matchup. And I think that's gonna lead to Dalton going under his passing yards total of 216 and a half. We're actually going to stick in that game, in the Bears-Panthers game. We're going to go the opposite side, though. We're going to bet on a member of the Chicago Bears. And this is my dark horse touchdown bet for Week 5. We cashed last week, Pat Freiermuth at 4-1. This bet is at plus 320. It is going to be Rome Odunze, the rookie wide receiver for the Chicago Bears. Rome Odunze is second on the Chicago Bears in targets with 23, but he's fourth in receptions. That tells me that the rest of his stats are going to catch up because they are targeting this guy a ton. If they continue to target him, the receptions are going to come, the yards are going to come, and most importantly for this bet, the touchdowns are going to come. That goes without saying. I mean, he already does have one touchdown on the season. I forget if it was last week or the week before. But now he and the Bears offense get to take on a Panthers defense that's 27th in opponent drop back EPA and 31st in opponent passing touchdowns per game. So far, the Panthers have allowed an average of 2.3 passing touchdowns per game. Second worst mark in the NFL. If the Bears get 2 passing touchdowns against this Panthers defense, I'm willing to take a plus 320 bet that Rome Odunze is on the receiving end of one of them. I think that's a pretty solid bet there, plus 320. Let's see if we can cash a second straight dark horse touchdown score. If I finish profitable for the year, if last week is any indication, if the first 4 weeks are any indication where I just go 5-5 every week, cashing these touchdown bets are going to be pivotal for me to stay profitable at the end of the season. So let's see if we can't hit another one this week. Those are my my player props ranked 10 through 6. Let's now move on to my top 5. Another sell high spot on a guy. I'm going to go under 220.5 passing yards for Sam Darnold for a lot of the same reasons why I'm betting on the Jets to cover in this game. I'm also going to fade Sam Darnold with his passing yards total. Too high, I think. 220.5. Maybe, this will not be too high of a number against a below average or maybe even an average pass defense, but we're talking about the Jets, who might have the number 1, if not the number 1, they're definitely top 5, maybe top 3 pass defense in the NFL. The Jets, so far this season, have allowed only 128 passing yards per game, 4.7 yards per pass attempt. That is the first fewest and the second fewest in the NFL. They're also top 5 in both drop back EPA and drop back success rate. So whether you want to look at simple stats or advanced stats, Jets are top 3, top 5 in all of them regardless, no matter which way you want to look at it. They are an elite secondary. It is by far the best pass defense that Sam Darnold has faced because, yes, the Vikings have big wins over some impressive teams, but the teams that they have beat are looked at as more offensive teams as opposed to defensive teams, like the 49ers, the Texans, and Packers. All 3 teams who, while I'm not saying their defenses are bad, all 3 teams that are successful more so because of their offense. This is the first team that the Vikings are facing that is, successful in a relative way, expected to be successful at least, more so because of their defense than their offense. I think that's going to cause Sam Darnold some issues. Also, it's in London. London games just feel weird for some reason. I don't know if I've data to back that up. That's more anecdotal. So yeah, I think Sam Darnold's. I think he's going to go under his passing yards total here. 220.5 is too high against what just might be the best secondary in the NFL. I'll take the under on Sam Darnold passing yards total. Number 4 ranked player prop for Week 5. We're going back to Thursday Night Football. This is my second of 2 prop bets for Thursday Night Football, and trust me, I'm not going to just bet on Falcons players for player props. I'm going to fade the Falcons defense here a little bit by taking Baker Mayfield over 22.5 completions. Something that is interesting about the Falcons defense is that they rank inside the top 10 in opponent yards per pass attempt, but they're actually second last in opponent completion percentage. So they allow teams to complete passes at a rate of 73.44%. The reason why I think that is the case, and I think film and I think passing charts of the teams they play against would prove this, is that because they have probably the best safety duo in the NFL in Justin Simmons and Jesse Bates, teams are avoiding throwing to the middle of the field. They're avoiding throwing deep. They're doing everything they can to avoid the best part of this Falcons defense, which is the middle of the field and it is deep. So what is that doing? That's forcing teams to throw underneath. That is forcing teams to stick to shorter routes. That's forcing teams to throw to the sideline, to throw flats. And if that's the case, what does that lead to? It leads to plenty of completions, but not a lot of passing yards, which is why I think if you want to bet on Baker Mayfield this week or any team's quarterback that is facing the Falcons, go ahead and take the over on their completions. I think that is the way to handle betting against the Falcons defense. Baker Mayfield has, by the way, hit at least 23 completions in 3 of his 4 starts this season. So we're not asking him to do anything abnormal to go over his completion number of 22.5 on Thursday Night Football. All right, we're down to my top 3 player props for Week 5. We're going to start with Zach Moss of the Cincinnati Bengals, under 45.5 rush yards at -120 against the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday. We have seen Zach Moss's snap percentage go down over the past 3 weeks. 3 weeks ago, he played 80% of offensive snaps, then 76% of offensive snaps, then 60% of offensive snaps over the last 3 weeks. Chase Brown, the other running back for the Bengals, his snap share has gone up from 30%, then 24% it dropped again, but then up to as high as 40% last week. So while Zach Moss is getting fewer snaps, Chase Brown is getting more snaps. That's not a good sign if you're betting overs on Zach Moss props. And on top of all that, the Bengals are now facing the number 1 rush defense in the NFL in the Ravens, who lead the NFL in opponent yards per carry, giving up just 3.0 yards per rush. They're also 6th in opponent rush EPA and 1st in opponent rush success rate. So not only do I not think Zach Moss is going to get as many carries as he has had the first few weeks, but if he does get carries, and when he does get carries, because he'll still get some, I think he's going to struggle to find much success on the ground against this Ravens defense. All right, let's go to my number 2 player prop for this week. It is Jordan Love. We're targeting the Packers in the Rams game. And I'm going to go Jordan Love over 255.5 pass yards for the same reason why the Packers to cover the spread is one of my favorite overall bets of the week. I also love Jordan Love to go over his pass yards. Those two things correlate, in my opinion. Rams, 31st in opponent dropback EPA, 29th in opponent dropback success rate, dead last in the NFL in opponent yards per pass attempt, giving up 8.6 yards per throw. Jordan Love has soared over this number in both of his starts this season. I see no reason why that won't continue on Sunday. My only concern, to be honest, is that they'll get off to such a big lead that he will stop throwing the ball in the second half. With that being said, I do think the Rams are good enough offensively to at least score some points to keep this close enough that Jordan Love is going to have to keep throwing the ball in the second half, at least in the third quarter. And we're not asking him to get 300 yards. We're asking him to get 256. Against this Rams secondary, I think that should be easily attainable. Jordan Love over 255.5 pass yards. We're going with a type of bet. My favorite prop bet for this week is a type of bet that I have not placed this season, and that is for a certain quarterback to throw an interception. Is my favorite player prop of the entire week. I'll give you a moment to guess who it is I'm going to bet to throw an interception. If you said it was Raiders quarterback Gardner Minshew, you're a winner. That is my number 1 player prop for week 5 is for Gardner Minshew to throw an interception at -133. Let me tell you where I got that really quick, just because I know, touchdown odds and things like interception odds can vary quite a bit from sportsbook to sportsbook. So definitely one that you want to line shop for. I got Minshew to throw an interception. The best price of the regulated New York sportsbooks is BetMGM at -133. Is where I bet that. You don't need me to explain this too much. Gardner Minshew is going up against the Broncos pass defense, where if the Jets are number 1, the Broncos are number 2. If you put the Broncos at number 2, the Broncos at number 1, the Jets are number 2. Those two teams have 2 of the best pass defenses in the NFL, and the Broncos are 2nd in opponent yards per pass attempt. I think what's going to happen, knowing how Gardner Minshew plays quarterback, I think he's going to get frustrated. I think he's going to force throws he shouldn't, try to throw. The Raiders, in my opinion, are going to be playing from behind because I do like the Broncos to win and cover this game. And Gardner Minshew is going to try to play hero ball at some point, throw an ill-advised pass and get an interception against him. He's also thrown interception in 3 of his 4 games already this season. So it's certainly not abnormal for Gardner Minshew to throw an interception. And at minus 133, I think that's more than a fair price for Minshew to throw an interception against a top 2, top 3 pass defense in the National Football League. So there you have it. Those are my top 10 player props for NFL Week 5. Just to recap them, it is Trevor Lawrence over 234.5 pass yards, Jaden Daniels under 212.5 pass yards, Bijan Robinson over 91.5 rush plus receiving yards, Andy Dalton under 216.5 pass yards, Rome Odunze anytime touchdown plus 320, Sam Darnold under 220.5 pass yards, Baker Mayfield over 22.5 completions, Zach Moss under 45.5 rush yards, Jordan Love over 255.5 pass yards, and Gardner Minshew to throw an interception at minus 133. As I always do, I am going to break down my DFS lineup for this week as well. So let's get to that. All right. My DFS lineup last week did not really go that well. I forget who. Saquon Barkley not having a big game definitely screwed me over. He was kind of the guy I went all in on, and it didn't work for me. This week, and once again, my DFS lineup, and it makes sense, is going to line up with a lot of my player props for the most part. Actually, now that I look at it, it actually doesn't line up with a lot of them. It does line up with I think it was my number 2 player prop is for Jordan Love to go over his passing yards total. So that is why I'm also going to choose Jordan Love as my quarterback. Let me just see if I can edit this so I can see how much. So he was 6,500. Pretty good price on a guy going up against the worst defense in the NFL so far this season in the Rams. James Conner, I just think his price for DFS is still not up to where it should be. He's the bell cow back. He catches, he runs the football. He had over 100 rushing yards last week. Still at 6,500. I think he should be priced a lot higher. I'm going to go Jaleel McLaughlin from Denver. For my other running back, a very good cheap option at $4,300. This is a guy who's getting more carries lately. He's been the more effective running back on the ground. And the Raiders, I think, are 3rd last in the NFL in opponent yards per carry. So I'd really like that as a cheap option so you can bolster some other parts of your lineup. I'm going to go DK Metcalf, who continues to be a beast. He's explosive. He can score touchdowns. He can, score long touchdowns. He has the speed. He's clearly the number 1 target in Seattle. Taking him at home with the Seahawks against the Giants. Deebo Samuel, I want to attack this Cardinals secondary. They've been abysmal this season. One way you could do it is to take Brock Purdy as your quarterback. Another way you could do it, and I considered taking Brandon Ayuk. But maybe I think I need I've tried to buy low on Brandon Ayuk the past couple weeks. I got to wait until he has a big performance to prove to me that he can still do it. So instead, I'm going to go Deebo Samuel, who looks to be back in the lineup this week. Christian Kirk, that does line up with my Trevor Lawrence pick for player prop. Christian Kirk, after a slow first 2 games, he has kind of broken out the last 2 games. He is back to being the clear number 1 option in Jacksonville. I think he can take advantage of a weak Colts secondary, and he's only $5,700 on DFS. Pretty cheap for a number 1 receiving option going up against a bad secondary. Tight ends are an absolute shit show in the NFL this year. They all stink. I guess I'll just go Dalton Schultz against the Bills. I like the Bills in that game. I think maybe the Texans are going to have to play from behind a little bit. Dalton Schultz, 4,100, has been getting targets. Tight ends are a complete crapshoot because they all suck. So, I mean, one of them is going to have a good game, I guess, maybe, or maybe they all suck anyways, and it doesn't matter. So, tight end, I would just take a cheap option that you like and hope for the best. Pittman for my flex. Pittman is another guy who is pretty cheap at 6,000. He, similar to Christian Kirk, slow start to the season, but he is by far the most targeted receiver for the Colts. And I actually kind of hope Joe Flacco starts and not Anthony Richardson. I actually think that's going to help out Pittman Jr. And then my defense, Denver Broncos against the Raiders. So I think are going to really mess the Raiders up. I'm betting on Minshew to throw an interception. So of course I would go with the the Broncos as my defense. But there you have it. That's my DFS lineup. Those are my top 10 player props for NFL Week 5. Be sure to subscribe to the Bacon Bets podcast on YouTube. Leave a comment with your best player prop for this week. Check out the Road to 272 with my best overall bet for every single game that was released earlier this week. Best of luck with your picks for Week 5. Gamble or bless, and I'll be back first thing Tuesday morning to give you my best bets for Week 6 of the NFL season. I will talk to you all then.